I'm Erin, and I'm joined with Renelle from Birth and Blossom. Renelle, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I have kids, you have kids, you are the birthing expert. I feel like I have kids, I'm not the birthing expert. So I want to speak with you about this today a little bit. First of all, what exactly is your program? What is the Better Birth Coaching Program?
Yeah, so the Better Birth Coaching Program is something I created based on like helping many parents have better birth experiences. And so I was teaching an in-person birth class. I moved that to like a online platform. So there's 6 modules that you go through at your own pace. And you get all the birth education, but I find like the key component of birth prep is also one-on-one support. So with a doula or someone who can help you prepare for your birth, a birth coach. So so it's birth education plus one-on-one support. It's not meant to like replace a doula if you wanted a doula at your birth, but many parents go through my program and then they're confident and prepared and they're like, I can do this. A doula is great, but we're going to do this on our own. Yeah.
So kind of what got you down this path? Like what got you started wanting to scratch this itch, if you will?
Okay. So it was actually my first birth experience. It was not great. It was quite traumatic. My son was born, they used the forceps, and then my recovery was not great at all after that either. So what that kind of like launched me into the birth world. He was also born just before COVID, so the world shut down. My husband was
high five COVID moms.
Yeah. My husband was home for like 7 months, which was great when you're postpartum in the COVID world, but like my mind got bored and I was like, I need to do something. I do massage, but I wasn't quite ready to like go back to massage. So I took a birth educator training program, and then I started kind of like dabbling in that. But then my son turned 1 and I found out he was pregnant like maybe a few weeks after that. And I had this fear. I was like, I cannot have that birth experience again. It's got to be a better birth this time. I also, there was just a lot of factors that I was just so focused on having a better birth experience. So I did work with a doula. I did a lot of like mindset work on my own, even with like tools I found. And my second birth was completely different. And it's like a birth experience that I'm proud of, like sharing my birth story. I'm proud of sharing my birth story. So in the meantime, I was, teaching my birth course, and parents were coming back telling me their great birth stories. So I knew it was possible. And then after my son was born, some clients of mine in my birth classes were like, are you a doula? Would you be our doula? So finally I just like took the training, became a doula. And now, I want to support, like expand my reach and stuff. So that's why I created the Better Birth program, so that it's accessible to parents anywhere, not just like in my city, right?
Yeah, it's so flattering, right? To find like, people saying, you don't do this for a living, but will you? Like, can you just do it anyway?
Exactly, right?
So after your first birth, because I'll share, like mine was 100% like that. Like it was not according to plan. It was very traumatic. It was not what I had wanted to experience. I mean, my husband was 10 and a half hours away, and I mean, he drove like as fast as he possibly could legally through the province of Alberta to get here as quick as he could. But yeah, did you talk to other parents and other families? Like, had you found that was kind of a common like theme? Like, did you reach out, I guess, and find that was a thing that a lot of people had experienced, that there were more traumatic births out there? And maybe, because I mean, I find sometimes for myself anyway, I had a lot of shame in that. Like I was like, why there's no way other people had it this bad, right? Like I just thought for me that was something I held on to for the longest time. And I mean, I just thought, there's everybody else had these great stories about their kids being born. Like, why was mine so bad? Like,
Right?
Right?
Yeah, no, it's like it is a thing, right? I also felt so much shame in my birth story, but like as I went through my journey, I healed that. But I was talking to some friends or even like my sister, and they were like, well, it's just like how it is. But like a part of me was like, but we've been birthing for like
Why?
thousands of years, right? Like, is it really like part of what it is? And so when I heard like, for me, what like was maybe like the light bulb moment is like I went to this mom group, and like I think there was 3 or 4 of us who had like a similar birth story, like in the term of events, like this happened and then this happened and then the doctor said this and the doctor said this, and then our babies were either born with forceps or vacuums. And I was like, there's like 4 of us in this room, so like how many other of us is there out there, right? And I was like, I don't think like that should be the norm. So when you like start digging into it, digging into statistics and stuff, it's like, oh, okay, like it has become the norm, but I don't think it should be. And
No.
Babies should be born more like calmly and peacefully. Because I think that would also like change the world if we all like came into the world in like this loving, peaceful environment,
Right.
rather than like this chaos and rush and like, is baby okay and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, I mean, I'd have a different story to tell.
Exactly.
That's for sure, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take your class
Mm-hmm.
and then like a traditional birth class. How different are the two of those?
Yeah, so my class is a bit different. We a traditional birth class, they will go over prep, and by prep I mean like the stages of labor, some interventions, your birth preferences, all those things. But I found with the parents I work with, even in my own birth journey the second time, the mindset and like releasing your old limiting beliefs, maybe especially if you've had that traumatic birth story, like if we're able to do a fear release and overcome some beliefs that we have surrounding birth, like as a society, but even our own experiences, stories we've heard. And if we're able to like rewire our brain to think about birth differently, then we're more prepared. And I also am a huge like believer in informed consent as well. So we really like hone into informed consent and advocating, all that stuff. But I also bring the partners into the birth support. So your husband or your birth partner, they're
Yes.
part of like the journey every step of the way. Because even in my first birth, my husband said like he felt like a deer in the headlights, right? Like he was like, I knew things could have been better, but I didn't know what to say or how to help. And I think when you're a team and when you're both better prepared, then like, yeah, it's just a way better experience. So those are kind of like the few pieces that make it different. It's like mindset, partner involvement, and really learning to advocate for yourself.
That's for sure. I mean, we had kind of talked about, should we sign up for the classes? Should we do this? Should we do that? But my husband was also like, well, I'm going to be away taking some schooling. So, I mean, if you want to, go ahead. And I just thought, well, he's not going to be there. So I'm not going to do it myself. We might as well both go into this blind, right? And I just thought, I know what I know. And I guess when he's there, he'll know what he knows. And hopefully we can just do this and that'll be enough. And well, it wasn't. I mean, we were very both deer in the headlights that day. And I mean, the whole day was chaotic anyway, but it was, like I want to say we were just like 2 young, silly kids, but I mean, we were both well old enough to know better. We should have known more, but no, we just, I want to say ignorance is bliss, but it wasn't very blissful.
Yeah. And then that's also like one thing that I talk about is like sometimes we think knowing less is better, or like, yeah, ignorance is bliss. But I really think that knowledge is power, especially in birth. Because if you know like the things they're talking about, like the certain interventions or like what certain things mean. And like if I've done also a lot of research, so like if you take my class, you don't have to like do all the stuff yourself. You're like saving time, right?
Right.
And it's evidence-based and stuff. But yeah, if you're prepared and we kind of do like some practice scenarios too. So like if they say this, like maybe these are good questions to ask, and ask for space to make a decision and whatnot. But yeah, I think truly being prepared is not just like learning what the best like position to birth your baby in, or like how to change positions in labor. It's like knowing what to do when those thoughts come in, like I can't do this, or like what's going on, all those things. It's like really learning to just master your own mindset.
Yeah, I feel like what I learned in grade 6 sex ed is where everything stopped for me. Like, maybe a little bit in health class in high school. Like that's very much where I plateaued, and that's about as far as we got, all the way to the day we had our kids. Like I don't feel like there was nothing else beyond that, because I kind of fell into the same situation where I was deemed a high risk pregnancy because I was older and I was having twins. And so it was just like, well, you go meet with your OBGYN every however often, and that was it. Like I didn't get any other support than that. And then it was COVID. And it was just like, well, you have twins, but I'm sorry, your husband can't come into any of the appointments with you because 2 people can't come in. And oh, well, I'm also sorry you had a cesarean scar, but you have to carry both these babies by yourself. It was just like, what?
Yeah, and I had a similar experience. Just like on the cusp of COVID, and then it's like you're alone, and then they're like, oh no, like everything shut down and all the support or whatever. So I've also built into my program, there's some postpartum support. So it's like some calls that we, group calls and one-on-one calls that we can get on, because I know what it is to be in the thick of postpartum. And sometimes, it's nice for someone to come do your dishes and do all that stuff. But sometimes it's just like a bit of connection or talking about things that your baby's doing. And you're like, is my baby the only baby in the world that's doing this? Or,
we've all thought it.
Yeah. So I've built in that support, because I also think that like we focus so much on preparing for birth often, but then it's like baby's here, and then it's like, okay, I didn't prepare for this either.
I know how to change a diaper and I know how to heat a bottle. Now what?
Exactly, right? And it's like sleep and all these things that you're like, oh, I didn't prepare for this. One of the modules is postpartum prep, and then there's some postpartum support.
It's so brilliant. Okay, so what if, like, a couple different other scenarios, like what if you wanted like a VBAC after you've had, just what if you wanted a VBAC?
Yeah, exactly. So VBAC is actually somewhat tailored, or my program is somewhat tailored to the VBAC world, or like VBAC moms, because a lot of my in-person clients have been VBAC moms, because you'll hear someone's cesarean birth story, and it's often there's the odd one that has been calm and peaceful and maybe planned, but it's often a series of like traumatic events that lead to a cesarean. VBAC is probably one of the ideal clients for this program, because there's also pieces that of the program that are specific to like the prep or advocacy. And it also takes like this certain mindset, because with a lot of VBAC moms, and it's not their fault, but there's this fear of like not trusting our body, because it was like, I couldn't birth my baby vaginally the first time, so how could I do it this time, right? There's this doubt and fear. And so we we dive into that as well.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's so brilliant. Okay, so what if you want unmedicated?
Yeah, so if
Birth.
you want unmedicated, it's also great because often what I find is moms who had the traumatic birth had an epidural or it ended up in a VBAC. And so their goal is unmedicated birth because often if we think unmedicated, they're like, I can avoid all of this if I have this unmedicated birth. So I cover natural pain management techniques. Like we practice visualization, breathing, as well as there's other tools that often I teach and moms are like, I didn't even know like this existed or I could use this in birth. And so like we talk about using a birth comb, or I teach partners how to do counter pressure and things like that. So extremely helpful. We also cover the pain medication or like all the medical pain management tools because I think it's a bit of a disservice to only focus on natural pain management, because then if something happens and you know you need pain medication or whatever, it's better to be informed about it than just completely like focus on the natural pain medication.
Right, because like you said, knowledge is power, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so it's not a one size fits all. So it is quite tailored to each individual client.
Yeah. So in terms of like one size fits all, the modules that you will go through, they are obviously like pre-recorded and you can do at your own pace. And so I cover a range of things in those, but then that's where the one-on-one support comes in. Is we have one-on-one calls. So one of them is like a birth strategy session where we set the vision for your birth and what your birth goals are, so that you can take those pieces from the course material and be like, okay, this fits to the birth I want. I actually don't resonate with this like tool or like this visualization technique or whatever, and so you can leave that piece behind. And then we also do some group calls because I like the community aspect of prepping for birth, moms at like similar stages in birth. So yeah, that's where the like one-on-one tailored support comes in. Is we talk about your birth specifically, your fears, because you might, you know, you're prepping for a VBAC, so your fears might be a bit different than someone who signed up and is a first-time mom, right?
Yeah.
But that's where we can tailor it and make it more personal.
I love that it's like so customized, right? Like it's just that little extra, like, it's so special. So when somebody is looking to sign up, when is the best point of time? Like, do we reach out to you when we're starting to plan to have a family? Do we reach out to you after we've passed that 3-month mark? Is it when we've got a due date? Like, when do we bring you into our fold?
Yeah, for sure. So there's no like specific time where it's like, you know, reach out to me when you're 12 weeks pregnant or whatever. I have moms who reach out like preconception, or, you know, they're thinking of having a family or having a second baby. And then I have moms who reach out, they just found out they're pregnant. But I find like the ideal time to actually enroll into the Better Birth program is when you're towards the end of the first trimester, beginning of the second. That gives you lots of time to prep for birth. If you reached out to me at like 36, 38 weeks, my program is 6 modules, so you'd be like cramming all the stuff in like 2 weeks. I probably would not say no to you, but just for like, you know, learning the techniques and all that mindset stuff, it does take time. So I like that, like, yeah, end of first, second to third trimester is like a really great time to enroll, but you can reach out to me at any time. I love talking about birth and helping moms prepare. Yeah.
Like we always planned a one and done, and we got a bonus. Like we are so in love with our kids. We love our family. Have never talked about having more. I am so jazzed right now to like think about having another kid just so I can talk with you longer. Like I absolutely adore that. I'm so comfy. I'm like, yes, let's talk forever, Renelle. This is amazing. Like I just want to have another baby so I can talk to you longer. Okay, so what kind of results? I mean, obviously, the result is there are at least one child, I hope, at the end of this. But what kind of results are people expecting when they reach out to you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I love it. I obviously, like, I can't guarantee your birth outcomes is like my little disclaimer, but I can guarantee that you will feel prepared for any scenario that your like birth might take, and that you will feel confident in the decisions you're making. So that's like when you're writing your birth plan or your birth preferences, when you're chatting or talking with your care provider, that like you are confident in asking questions so that you can in turn like make a decision that you're confident, that you're proud of, and that when your baby's born, you're like, okay, like I was prepared, I did everything, and yeah, it was a great birth experience, because birth is unpredictable, and parents have gone through my program, and they have had, there's the odd parent or like mom who has had a cesarean birth, but they always come back and they say like, I had a cesarean birth, but I don't feel like I failed, or I don't feel like, you know, I wasn't part of the process or anything like that. They said like they were very prepared, and even like their nurses and doctors and support team often comment about like how calm and relaxed and like yeah, how great it went, even though it might have not been like their birth goal. So yeah, you can definitely just be confident that you'll know all you need to know about birth without like being a doctor or like an OBGYN or like having to be like, you know, a doula like me, but that you'll be prepared for like all scenarios.
So Renelle, then how can people reach out to you, and how can they get hold of you?
Yeah. Actually, I thought of like just something to add for.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything else that you wanted to let us know about today? Yeah.
Yeah. So if I were to just like, you know, say something to anyone who's listening and preparing for birth, is that like your birth, you can be in charge of your birth story. It doesn't have to be a story that you're not proud of, or that ends up in a traumatic situation that you may have heard. And yeah, that it can be a positive experience. Birth is not as like, it's not like in the movies, essentially.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you won me over, and I wasn't even going to have another kid. Right? All right. How can people get hold of you, Renelle?
Okay. So the best way is on Instagram. That's where I spend a lot of time interacting with people and stuff. But my Instagram is Birth and Blossom. So BIRTHAND Blossom BLOSSOM, Birth and Blossom.
Perfect.
And if you are not an Instagrammer, because I know not everyone spends a lot of time on Instagram or wants to DM on there, but my email is info@birthandblossom. So that's another good way to reach me.
Birthandblossom.com.
Yeah, birthandblossom.ca. Sorry. Yeah.
.ca. Okay, perfect.
Birthandblossom.ca.
Just wanted to double check the end. Okay.
Yeah.
info@birthandblossom.ca.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me today. This was amazing. I love our conversation this morning.
Thank you for doing this and having me.
Yeah, this was amazing. This was incredible. I loved this.